On hand to present the trophy was 4 times world professional surfing champion Mark Richards. The trophy goes to the school which accumulates the most points at the National Schools Championships held at Victor Harbour in South Australia. It's the second year in a row the school has won the title. As well, the school also won the All-Stars trophy. The Newcastle High team was Philippa Anderson, David MacArthur and Matt Hoy. Matt won the most outstanding surfer of the competition, but was not present today because of surfing commitments in Sydney. The team is coached and managed by science teacher Neil Chapman and had earlier won the regional and state titles to make the Australian final. Despite being the top schoolboy surfers in the nation, both Philip and David are sticking to their books rather than dropping out and taking to the circuit.
First I'm just going to finish off my HSC, then after that I'll just take it as it comes.
The two 18-year-olds say the Newcastle Waves gave them the edge over their rivals. They say the local Waves are more consistent and have more push. Philippa's haul included gold in the girls' 10 years 50 metres freestyle, 50 metres backstroke, 50 metres butterfly, the 200-metre individual medley and 2 in relay events. Representing New South Wales in the championships at the Commonwealth Games pool in Brisbane, Philippa broke Queensland records in the butterfly and backstroke events. The winning form is the result of a lot of hard work, training 9 2-hour sessions a week at the Junction Swim Centre under coach Eric Arnold. After only 3 years in the sport, the 5th grader also holds New South Wales records. Surprisingly enough, the Hamilton primary school student almost predicted her success at the pool when she went to the Brisbane Commonwealth Games 5 years ago.
I went in kindergarten to watch the Commonwealth Games in 1982 and I said that I'd like to go there and I did.
What are you planning for the future?
Well, I'd like to be as good as Dawn Fraser and go to most Commonwealth Games and things like that.
Port Stephens is the first tourist area to recruit the financial help of a private sponsor. Up until now, it's been financed by the 3 tiers of government, as well as contributions from local businesses. But today came the announcement that the winemakers, McWilliams, are making a $100,000 2-year commitment to pay half of the promotional costs. But just how difficult was it to secure a private sponsor?
We did send out our brief to a few different companies. McWilliams was really the first one that showed a great interest in it, and we were very happy that it was McWilliams because we feel that it fits in perfectly in the Hunter region, mainly because of our romance deal where we're trying to promote romance in the Port Stephens area. So
only 2.5
the promotion will
hours from
involve
Sydney,
trade
you'll
shows and
find
newspaper
a
advertising,
port
but
of
the main
discovery,
thrust will be
a
a Sydney
port of
television
excitement,
campaign enticing
a
the
port
city
of
dwellers to
delight,
rediscover romance at Port
a port
Stephens.
of togetherness, a port of magic. Port Stephens, port of romance.
Good afternoon, I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, a report on the dairy industry and the standoff between Victorian and New South Wales farmers. Today, a group from Victoria toured Hunter Valley Farms.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6. This is what the people of the United Kingdom have to look forward to when the marching koalas go to visit in July. The band, made up of students from 24 high schools in the region, has been raising money for the trip to England and Scotland since last year. Up until last night, they'd raised $400,000 of the $500,000 costs. But the Lord Mayor's $100 a ticket dinner helped move that figure up sharply, with $35,000 presented by Premier Unsworth and a further $37,000 donated by Maitland and Newcastle City Councils, as well as a number of companies.
Tonight is the 200th anniversary of the sailing of the first fleet from Portsmouth for Sydney Cove, and we thought it was an ideal time to invite the Premier up, or the Lord Mayor did, invite the Premier up to Newcastle to celebrate the Bicentenary. And it was the start of it, really, and also as a fundraiser for the Marching Koalas tour of the United Kingdom in July. What we're going to do after that is, after tonight, we'll be doing all the curbing and going around still putting numbers on curbs at $5 a go, and through your station's kind support and the people and the kids themselves, it looks as though we'll have no problem in raising the extra money that's needed, really, to get us over there.
The small community have to you when these allegations are published?
Well, they're going to think I'm a crook. That's briefly, in a nutshell, they say he's got to be a crook. The first impression that people get when a Member of Parliament stands up.
Since the closure of the State Dockyard, Varley's has had the short-term lease on this ship repair facility. By showing those people who matter just how well the company is managing it, Varley is making it clear it wants the long-term lease also. Senior Navy personnel, politicians from the three tiers of government and trade union representatives responded to an invitation to inspect the yard and the company's track record of management. Since taking over the lease, Varley has been busy securing contracts including work for the Navy. The frigate HMAS Torres is now in dock sporting yellow undercoat. This is one of many contracts that will keep the ship repair facility booked until the middle of July. Varley's lease, however, expires in 8 days' time. It will then be renewed on a monthly basis. The company believes its proven ability to secure work strengthens its case for the long-term lease. Varley's faith in Newcastle is as strong as this conviction.
But we have the skill here in Newcastle. I think the important thing is not just a labour pool to operate the dock in Newcastle, but all the design, naval architectural skills, marine engineering skills have got to be maintained in Newcastle. And I think that's a very important aspect of us having the dock in Newcastle.
To secure these contracts, are you making your tenders more attractive than usual in order to get the dockyard back on its feet?
With the closing of the dockyard, there was a certain amount of hesitancy with it, but certainly we've got a learning curve in operating a dock like this, and yes, we're making our effort very attractive, and we're hoping that we can match that performance. In actual fact, we are at the moment.
Varley yesterday confirmed a contract with Trans-Tasman and says it will continue its aggressive campaign to get the dock back on its feet.
Unionists were marching to Civic Park, Sir Joe was giving a news conference.
I know you have strong union people here who believe in policy that sort of might is right in this type of attitude, don't mind hurting people. Get off the backs of the people is what we're going to do, and get the government off the back, and let you have 75 cents out of every dollar. You can earn as much as you like, and put 75 cents in every dollar in your pocket. And we will look after your superannuation, those who are lucky enough to have superannuation. We're going to make sure that the family man gets a better deal than he's ever had before. I promise you that.
Go home, Joe! Go home, Joe! Go home, Joe! Go home, Joe!
Police were called to a house in Koyong Place, Bolton Point, following reports of gunfire about 10 o'clock last night. A 32-year-old man, William Henry Delaney, tried to break up an argument between a 29-year-old man and a woman. In an ensuing dispute, a shot was fired from a gun. Delaney took shelter behind the garage door of the house and was hit when a shot blasted through it. He was treated at Wallsend Hospital for pellet wounds to the shoulder and was later discharged. Today, a 29-year-old labourer, Stephen Patrick O'Hara of Koyong Place, Bolton Point, appeared in Wallsend Court. He was charged with attempted murder, discharging a firearm with intent to cause grievous bodily harm and with malicious wounding. O'Hara appeared before Magistrate Warren Cook. He refused bail, saying the allegations against him were most serious. O'Hara was remanded in protective custody and the case adjourned until next Monday. Winter has arrived in all its invigorating splendour. Time to break the woolies out of mothballs to ward off this year's assortment of colds and flu. Many respiratory infections are caused by a virus called influenza A. Vaccines against it are already available, but now a new treatment is to be trialled in the Hunter region. A research team from Newcastle University's medical faculty is testing the drug Romantadine, which is taken in tablet form. Clinics at Charlestown, Wallsend and Newcastle will conduct the trial beginning in mid-July for a 6-week period. At least 450 volunteers are needed and they'll be paid $150 each to participate.
And we're looking at it particularly with a view to a treatment for flu that has little or no side effects.
A second research project at the university is also bearing fruit. Professor Barry Botcher is an expert on DNA, the chemical material in our cells that acts like a genetic blueprint. Professor Botcher extracts DNA from body tissues and analyses it to create a pattern on an X-ray film. This is known as a DNA fingerprint. The pattern produced by each person is unique, regardless of what body tissue is used, and a pattern can be produced from as little as 2 drops of blood. The professor believes the DNA prints could be used in criminal investigations.
It's considered to be the biggest advance in forensic biology in many, many years, probably since blood grouping came in. The reason is that the pattern of bars is so distinctive that at this stage, no 2 people have been found to have the same pattern, the same DNA fingerprint.
He says the prints could also be used to investigate paternity cases.
Thank you. More efficient.
The paper, presented by Peter O'Connell to the Hunter Summit workshop earlier this month, states that since the early 60s there's been a gradual decline in the importance of the manufacturing industry as a single employer in the region. In 1961, manufacturing employed more than a third of the total workforce. In 1971, that figure had dropped to 30%, and in 1981, manufacturing employed about a fifth of the total workforce in the Hunter. In comparison, there's been a steady growth in service industries like tourism, but more significantly in areas such as information, public administration, health services, education and welfare, and importantly in intellectual property, the business of selling ideas, computer software and patents. The paper suggests the Hunter should now follow a set plan, like the 5-year development strategy and the Employment Development Initiative, to adequately map out the employment needs of the region into the 1990s.
The late 1920s saw the opening of a Seventh-day Adventist administrative building at Gordon Street, Hamilton. Recently, that building was sold to make way for a new $1 million complex. Although officially opening in the new year, the building is to be finished around August. When completed, it will have an all-purpose chapel, a heritage room and an administrative area. The president of the Northern New South Wales Zone, Pastor Rex Moe, said that the old facilities were too small for their needs.
Our budget to operate the church now is about $8 million a year in North New South Wales, and I suppose 50% of that is in our educational program. This requires more space, better facilities, better equipment, and there was no real alternative to it. I guess we simply had to relocate, and we were happy to come out to Walls End area.
25 staff run church activities from the Hawkesbury River to the Tweed River. These activities include 9,000 people, 72 churches, 15 primary schools, 5 high schools and a geriatric hospital.
Hello, I'm Janelle Provost. Today New South Wales Premier Barry Unsworth was in Newcastle to visit Gaminan and see the new Tangara suburban train. Mr Unsworth said the first of the Sydney suburban trains should be online in January 1988.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Elsewhere in the world, a spectacular fire in Sao Paulo, Brazil last night. The fire destroyed the upper floors of an 18-story building in the centre of the city. It is hard to believe, looking at these pictures, nobody was killed.
In the office of the state utility, where some of the workers were charged with fraud last week and sacked. In the wake of the Jim Baker Praise the Lord ministry scandal, the new order wants to get back some of the money Mr Baker spent on his high-flying lifestyle. An auction is being held tomorrow to sell off some of Jim and Tammy Baker's non-essential possessions,
his toy
like
cars,
the
his
toy
toy cars and
the
teddy bears,
pianos,
pianos, and it's the Baker's air-conditioned doghouse, which some believe will bring up to $5,000 home in the mountains.
At another auction in London today, a collector paid a record price for the handwritten manuscripts of 9 symphonies by Mozart. The manuscripts, which were written while the composer was still in his teens, brought more than $5 million.
We will have camera State Association officials, including President Audrey Davis and Promotions Officer Bev Dew, met local President Del Saunders and Newcastle officials today to check final arrangements. It's the first time a carnival of this importance has been held outside of Sydney.
Yes, that's right, Lee. It's marvellous for the sport itself to come here because it's such a big area. And I believe there's about 3,500 registered players in Newcastle, so it's great for Newcastle netball to see the top netball.
What do you think of these facilities?
Fantastic. We were here about 3 years ago for the state age, which it rained, but it's not going to rain this year, of course. But we were quite happy with the facilities, and Council of New South Wales Council, they decide where it goes. We don't as a board people, so they decide to come here. So apparently everybody's happy in the state to come back to Newcastle.
Sure. People in the Hunter Valley are going to see some of the very best of New South Wales netballers, and we've heard of a few you might like to mention.
Yes, well in Randwick's team you've got Marcia and Keely Devry, who have just been announced in the Australian squad.
And Marcia Ella, I believe, is a sister of the rugby union Ellas, isn't she?
Yes, that's right.
Talented family.
Talented, yes. Marcia's spectacular, really. Centre court player, and then you've got the Australian captain, of course, and Sargent, which I think everybody knows. So you've got a wide area of players going that they'll be able to see.
If there was once ping-pong diplomacy, Israel has invented pistachio politics. For the past year, the market here has been flooded with pistachios, bigger and better and cheaper than ever before. Where do they come from? What's going on? Pistachio aficionados are silent and suspicious. Israeli officials are characteristically non-committal.
Well, why wouldn't you build an investigation committee? I don't know where the pistachio is coming from.
But the marketplace knows. In the Middle East, the marketplace always knows.
Khomeini. From Iran.
What's known as this: there were no Swiss bank accounts, there was no fancy strategy, no dreams of moderating a Muslim regime. On the street, they say, it was pure barter. Guns for nuts. Supply and demand. Israel has a surplus of guns, Iran has a surplus of nuts. There were plane loads of pistachios, perhaps. There was, after all, interesting air traffic between Tel Aviv and Tehran. Others say they came by sea, a circuitous route, laundered in Germany, their markings removed, unloaded by night. It's the kind of story Israelis love, involving secrets and conspiracy and something to eat.
Do you solemnly swear?
So while Americans continue their investigation,
I do. Please be seated.
Israelis watch from the sidelines, suspecting that what it all comes down to is nuts.
Ticket examiners were at Newcastle and Civic stations between 6 and 9 this morning to catch abaters during the peak hour rush. The job is usually done by ticket collectors who are not fully trained in ticketing, and when approached by large groups of people making their way through the exit barriers, can miss people not carrying valid tickets. However, only 5 people, 3 at Newcastle and 2 at Civic, were found to be travelling without a ticket. They now face a maximum fine of $200 if the State Rail Authority takes the matter to court. A similar Blitz in Sydney over the past 2 weeks has caught 6,000 passengers travelling without a valid ticket. State Rail's Chief Executive, Pat Johnson, says he's delighted with today's Blitz. He says State Rail is not out to summons people, it just wants them to buy their ticket before boarding a train, as the law requires. Signs at stations clearly spell out the penalties for travelling without a ticket. There's no excuse except for those travelling from an unmanned station. The Blitz moves to Wickham and Hamilton stations tomorrow, Broadmeadow and Waratah Thursday, and then at random.